Episode 8 of the Juice Box Junkies is live, or we're live. You won't be when you hear this. Fellas, we have baseball to talk about. Actual baseball, not financials. Well, I'm sure we'll talk some financials as we get going here, but we have hope. Our long, cold winter is over. Baseball will be back April 7th and 162 games. Now, the Phillies went from the first of the season, I'm seeing the first series of the season to the last of the season. We had some changes. Brian's getting primed and ready to give us all the scoop. But Brian Dunleavy from Virginia, Matt Kunkel, I believe you are in Dallas. Is that right?
Dallas right now.
Nailed it. And Christian, I'm just guessing Seattle. You're always somewhere else. Where are you at today?
I'm in Seattle today.
All right, all right. The one and only Astros fan in Seattle. Do you know any other Astro fans in Seattle?
I do. We got a couple of us up here. From
Cool,
a couple
cool.
of my people from Astros Twitter. Shout out to you guys. But yeah,
All
Might
right.
be might be fighting you this season though.
maybe.
And we're
Maybe.
going to get to that, fellas. We've got the over under on the wins and where the Astros and the Mariners will come in according to WinBet. That's a little bit later in our agenda. First off, we want to talk about the new CBA that's in place. As I mentioned, 162 games beginning April 7th, 9 inning doubleheaders like real baseball, universal DH, no ghost runners in extra innings, though I heard a rumor they may still work around that somehow, which would make me and my boy both very unhappy. But I posted a article in our Slack channel yesterday that had some other interesting takes with this new CBA. No game 163. If there's a tie, there's a formula that will work that out. So they want to play game 163. I'm older than you guys. It's one of my first memories of baseball, of Major League Baseball, the Yankees and Red Sox and Carlton. Was it Carlton? No, Bucky Dent. I'm sorry. I've got my home runs down the left field line messed up. Bucky Dent. Yeah, that's Carlton Fisk. Bucky Dent was just running around the bases. So no game 163. Increased minimum salaries, not just for major leaguers, but for minor leaguers. 12-team playoffs, of course, that we've talked about. There's new draft order. There's a range, a few days range for the trade deadlines for those weird years where it like falls on a Saturday and everybody's playing and they don't want the players to get traded in the middle of a game. There's limits on options and waivers. Apparently, a couple of guys got waived back and forth between two teams like 4 times in a year or something, which is interesting. I don't know. And of course, they're still going to negotiate the international draft, and we'll see if they come to an agreement on that. All that's in there. Obviously, we could talk for hours on this, but let's start with Matt Kunkel. We feel totally different than we did last time we got together. So much joy, so much happiness. Your take on the new CBA?
Overall, I'm just happy it's done because I like watching baseball. I don't like nosing through, litigation. But I think my thing is with the players, particularly with the draft order and the 12-team playoffs. I think a lot of people might not like it. I like it because there has to be an incentive to win. And I think a lot of these owners, maybe the owners with like the Rockies or the Marlins, they look at their bottom line and they're making business decisions that ultimately get them more money, but is anti-competitive. So I like the idea of having a lottery that you're not guaranteed to get the top pick if you're the worst team in baseball. I really like that. And then in the middle, like 12 teams, that's an extra 2 spots to make the playoffs. And with baseball in particular, I mean, they're doing this with the NFL. They're doing this with the NBA. They're adding more open spots to make the playoffs. With baseball, I mean, we know as good as anyone, a team can be pretty average, and then they get hot in September, and they have just as good a chance as anyone to win the World Series. So I like that they're dangling the carrot more towards making be more competitive, enticing fan bases and their leadership to make decisions to win now and not to just rebuild, collect assets, and collect money.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the old guy, so you'd probably think that I'd want things to stay the way they are, and there are a lot of things that I'm like that on, right? But the draft was put in that order under the assumption that all the teams are going to try and win. So when you see that's not happening, you've got to change with the times, which of course baseball is famous for not doing. So this was a step in the right direction. I agree with Matt 100%. Christian, you're up next. I think the players won more than they lost. What's your take, Christian?
I think that's interesting that you have that perspective because I think a lot of people generally think that too. But if you look at our team, like the Astros voted against it. The executive committee member is Jason Castro. The players representative for the team is Lance McCullers Jr. Obviously voted no. There could be some politicking there, knowing that it was going to pass. That maybe it was more of a ceremonial no, but
Right.
the Astros certainly didn't think that. In any case, the Astros didn't think that the agreement favored their team very much or the players on their team very much. But that said, I think you're right. I do think the players. It came down to dollars and cents, and the owners got to have more games with the expanded playoffs, so therefore they get more revenues, and the players got increased minimums for minor leaguers and league minimum guys and pre-arb and then the pre-arb pool bonus as well. I believe is maybe weaved in there too. Can't remember. But I think it's just exciting. The baseball's back. I mean, I don't really want to drone on too much about it, but I'm excited. The ghost runners are gone, and it's hopefully permanently. It's such a hokey little thing. I don't mind the universal DH. I mean, I grew up playing baseball. I mean, played at a bunch of different levels and stuff, and same with Brian. And I don't know. I've always been like an advocate of the game at the core of what it is. Everyone plays the field, everyone hits, but I mean, just looking at the product that we have had in the last, I don't know, decade or a little more than a decade of just pitchers standing there and like being told not to do anything. That's just absolutely boring and no one wants to watch it. And it's almost a guaranteed out and it just really stinks. And so I'm like, if it's going to make the game more exciting, move things along, yeah, is it going to make the few guys like Zach Greinke or Madison Bumgarner upset that they don't get to hit every once in a while? Probably, but I think overall it's a good thing for the game.
Well, the game again has changed, right? Back in the day, here I go, the old dude again. Back in the day, pitchers used to actually try and hit, and pitchers didn't make $8 million a year, or 10 or 12, and they weren't so worried about getting injured. Now they're scared to swing, right? They certainly don't want to run. So things have changed. Where I think I remember my friend who played in the major leagues. He got drafted by the Angels. His whole thing, he said, I just want one at bat because he batted in college as a DH sometimes, hit a couple home runs. He just wanted to bat, right? He just wanted to bat one time. And now they don't want to do that because they don't want to get injured. Most of them, there are a few, as you said, Greinke and guys of that ilk, but for the most part, pitchers want nothing to do with it, and they stand there and they don't want to get hurt. They want to risk the next contract to get hurt for that one or two at bats a year, maybe five. But sounds like there would have been more with the new schedule that they've come up with, playing every team in the National League for a series at least. Brian, your take on the new CBA and the big items as you see it. Oh, and one thing more before I turn it over to you, Brian, the only reason I think the players did win, I just think they didn't get everything, right? They wanted more, and that's why they maybe voted against it or weren't all so thrilled about it. But I still think they won more than the owners did. I'm sorry, Brian.
No, you're good. I think you're right. I think the players won out for the most part. I think baseball won as well. As far as getting rid of that, I don't understand. The ghost runner is probably that's just as bad as the NFL's extra time rule. I mean, it's just horrible. You just put a guy in scoring position that statistically speaking, if there's on second with nobody out, I think you're looking at a 75% chance of him scoring. So
Yep.
That's ridiculous to put that into place. So I'm glad that that's gone, and I'm with Christian. Hopefully it's gone forever, and we never have to deal with that ever again. yeah, that was terrible. I think the players won though with money, that league minimum, and you can be the worst player on the team for 2 years and be a millionaire. That's saying a lot. Going to 700K, for your league minimum, for a guy that maybe catches bullpens every day. That's a pretty good deal. And I think the other people that won, certainly the minor leaguers, and I could be wrong on this this part too, but I was reading through that minor league 40-man roster pay level scale, and from what I understand is if they're on their first contract as a minor leaguer, not as a 40-man roster person, I could be wrong with that, but first contract as a minor leaguer is usually like 5 years or so. 4 or 5 years, and then you get to renegotiate and re-sign. So I don't know if it's your first contract as under the 40-man roster, or if it's as a minor leaguer. It wasn't specific in the article, but I had the assumption it was in the 40-man roster category. But either way, you're getting paid pretty well to be potentially in the AAA for multiple seasons in a row, which what would Forrest Whitley be being paid right now to not play at all? So, I mean, that's a pretty good deal. And lastly, I think what's good for baseball too is the other piece about it, and I had it saved up here, but the expansion into other countries, finally getting on board with the NBA and the NFL and everybody else that's making money abroad. I mean, you're playing in Asia. Obviously, there should be multiple places there. Dominican Republic. That's a no-brainer. London, Mexico, Paris, Puerto Rico. Those are all great locations, I think, for baseball, and to really get that influx of more fans and more support, and obviously the owners and the league want more money too. So you're going to get that from them as well. But you're only helping yourself by expanding your market, to other areas. So.
Yeah, we talked about that last week about the NBA, right? Who's expanded, and the Spurs. My son's a Spurs fan. They have like 12 nationalities on their team, right?
Yep.
Almost everybody's a different nationality. It makes for a lot of fun. It makes for growing of the game, which baseball certainly needs. All right, fellas, let's talk a little bit about the Astros specifically now. And Christian, I know you have an article in the works on the perhaps return of Carlos Correa. I can't believe here we are. We're in mid-March, and it's still a question. Of course, there was a time where he could not sign with anyone from December till recently, but a lot of other people have signed and taken some of the positions where we thought Correa might end up. The Astros are making another offer to Correa. Where do we stand with Carlos Correa as of today?
So I think Marly Rivera from ESPN, she tweeted out at like 9:30 this morning that, according to her sources, that it's still being worked on. So I don't know if that means the Astros are still working on an offer, if Correa is still working on, accepting the offer or sifting through offers. I don't really know. The thing is like the longer it goes, you feel like two things could happen. Either the Astros are in the best position to re-sign Correa at a deal that's more favorable to the team, or some team is going to get mad desperate that they're getting left out of all these trades and all these big signings. I think the Cubs just signed Seiya Suzuki and to one of the largest deal for second largest deal for a Japanese player ever. The Mariners, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, are making some trades from some all-stars, still in the mix, believe it or not, for a big name free agent. And then we just got teams like Detroit and that are going to be looking to add a star and add a piece. So I think as time moves along, I could see it going both ways, like a team getting super desperate and being like, screw it, we're going to give him give him what he wants, and we're going to crack and give the money to Boris. Or Scott Boras. And then the other side, I could see where, as times moves along, maybe the deals aren't coming in and the Astros are willing to come a little further beyond their comfort zone. They're still not going to give them 10 years, but maybe something like six years for $38 million a year or something crazy. But I don't know. I don't think we know any more than what we knew then, other than I think TMZ reported he sold his house. So, I mean, that's about it. So.
Well, he'd be able to afford a new one.
I think so, regardless. But yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be interesting how this is going to play out. I think it's it's like such a crazy time to like try to negotiate. Just like everything is bunched up in this last few weeks before the season starts, and so
that's a great point. He would have had 4 months, I guess. That or actually
we lost 99 days of the off season. So
yeah. Wow, that's a good point. The other thing I thought about, and Matt, I'm going to come to you next, but the other thing I thought about, what if you're Jeremy Pena? You're either going to be the starting shortstop for the AL West favorites, or you're playing in Topeka with Sugarland or wherever with Sugarland, right? His career's in flux too, right? It's got to be weird to be Jeremy Pena right now, and Carlos Correa, but Carlos is going to get paid by somebody, some amount. Jeremy Pena's major league career is on the line. Matt, what's your take on the Correa situation as it stands?
Well, I mean, I think Christian kind of nailed on the head. We really don't know. I mean, just me looking at the transactions, thinking, okay, the Yanks might be comfortable with Isaiah Kinner for life up for this year. Cubs just signed Suzuki. I mean, Detroit's got Javi Baez, so they might be comfortable there. I don't know. It seems like Correa is kind of he's going to be the guiding force to what happens the rest of the free agency, because, I mean, Story hasn't been signed, Bryant hasn't been signed, Castellanos hasn't been signed. So, I mean, I'm really interested to see what's going to happen. I mean, and then leading back to Pena, yeah, it's kind of a strange situation. He doesn't know if he's going to be play next to Jose Altuve on opening day, or is he going to be, like you said, Topeka, Kansas, playing against who knows? No shade against people in Topeka, Kansas. Lovely city. But he's never had an actual professional at bat. He's never had a game. So I think he's probably more focusing on his opportunity to play in the show this year, because he's going to play. Even if Carlos comes, I think he's going to see some playing time. Just depends on how much and how much opportunity he will get. Maybe on off days, maybe he can play other positions. Who knows? But I'm interested. I keep checking Twitter every hour, seeing what Carlos Correa is doing. What's he eating for breakfast? What's he thinking right now? I think most Astros fans are like that.
Well, it's kind of funny, right? Because we're waiting for the dominoes to fall, and every time the Slack channel pings, I'm like, Correa's done something. Of course, my kid would probably yell through the house if he re-signed with the Astros. Well, he'd probably yell either way, just depending on what he would yell. But it's just kind of funny because you're kind of waiting for that domino to fall, right? If Story signs somewhere, the Cubs, for example, then you're kind of going, okay, Correa's not there, mark them off the list. Or do you really mark them off the list, right? Are they going to pull a Rangers and spend $500 million on their middle infield? Who knows? That even adds more intrigue. Brian Dunleavy, your take on Carlos Correa?
The only take I have is I enjoy the confusion around Martin Maldonado's tweets. That's
that guy
by far. My favorite part is he's tweeted pictures with Correa at his house. He's done the time. My time is now symbol on his tweets, and then he says the next day, I'm not tweeting anymore because everybody thinks it's about Carlos. Well, that's all you're tweeting about. Don't tell me you're tweeting about anything else.
Dude's a comedian.
He is.
He needs to do stand-up.
So, I mean, right now it looks like it's in the Astros' favor. Unless, like always, and it happens all the time in sports and baseball in particular, that some team out of left field, literally, decides to sign, Correa to a big deal that nobody is reported on. You're looking at crazy teams like I don't know who has a bunch of cap space. Maybe the Padres just throw cash around there, or the the Cardinals that I wrote about before.
The Reds have some space. They've traded a few guys in the last couple of days.
I don't think the Reds have a lot in getting anything. I think the only thing the Reds are interested in is the top 1 or 2 picks in the draft. Them and Oakland are in a race to the bottom.
Okay, Carlos Correa, the one interesting piece left to the Astros, but there's another interesting piece. Lance McCullers, who told us a few weeks ago that he would not be ready opening day. Now, I noticed this in the little blurb from Dusty Baker. Not only did it say he wouldn't be ready open day, they asked him when he thought if he would pitch this year for the Astros, and he said, hopefully. He didn't say he would. He didn't say we'll see you in June, or he said hopefully Lance McCullers will pitch this year. Brian, I'm going to go to you first. 2 weeks ago or so, we talked about the rotation and how many starting pitchers they had. And at that time, I think I said injuries are going to happen. It's just a matter of when. We knew McCullers was going to be down for opening day then. Now they could be facing the year without, quote, their ace, McCullers meaning, and Justin Verlander have not pitched since July of 2020, I think, 39 years old, coming off TJ. All of a sudden, there's not a wealth of starting pitchers in Houston that you can rely on for 150, 175 innings because Verlander's contract is set at 130 for him to get that second year or have that second year option. So that tells me right there that he's going to be short in some of those games. They're going to watch him very closely. Your take, Brian, on the Lance McCullers situation?
I will go to the take that since I wrote about the first injury at the beginning, right out the box and went off of all the reports and everything, I'll go to the take, and this is the hot take for the day, that I wouldn't believe a single thing that the Astros are going to say about Lance McCullers, because I don't think they want to tell anybody. I really don't, because they should know. I know they're playing this waiting game. That McCullers has an injury, and that's real, but they're playing this waiting game like it's going to heal on its own, and they don't have to have surgery and that sort of thing, which is fine, if that's truly the case. But if you have, and I'm sure they've asked at least 4 or 5 different doctors what they think on the issue. If all of them are saying, or the majority of them are saying, you need to have surgery, and it's going to be a year of rehab for whatever case it is, I don't think they're going to say that. I think they're just going to be kind of nonchalant, like they've been the whole time, saying, well, maybe he'll pitch, maybe he won't, I'm not sure. I mean, it's getting really hard to believe this is like the 8th statement they've come out with since the postseason last year, which don't come to be true. So my opinion is I don't believe a single thing the Astros are saying about McCullers' injury. I know McCullers wants to play, but I don't think the Astros are going to make any really definitive statement until he is either coming back, and he's in the minor league system, or he's out for the year. Those are the only 2 statements I'll believe.
And basically, McCullers, in one of his statements, basically admitted that, right? He said, we said maybe we could pitch and, continue to pitch in the postseason or rest. Maybe I could pitch in the World Series. But the way I interpreted his body language was that was never going to happen. Obviously, here we are 6 months later almost, and he still can't pitch, and he needs rehab. So, Matt Kunkel, your take on Lance McCullers' situation?
Not good. I mean, we kind of hinted towards that. The rotation's kind of a question mark. Yeah, sure, we got JV back, but now with him not in the mix, I know I'm probably the only Jake Odorizzi fan in the Astros fan base, but we don't know what he's going to be. He was really bad last year. Urquidy, I don't think he's had a full healthy season. He's going to probably be on the injured reserve. We don't know what we're going to see out of Garcia. I mean, the only positive thing I'm hearing right now is Framber Valdez is working on a cutter. But yeah, I wrote about it today actually for Climbing South Hill. There seems to be a need to go out and get another starter, maybe a stopgap-like starter that can pitch to the number 4 or number 5 spot, because I think it's going to be a long season, and without McCullers, and we don't know about JV, and we don't know about some of the other guys, I mean, we should look at guys like a Chris Archer or a J.A. Happ, or, I mean, if we're getting real desperate, like a Cole Hamels, who are still trying to play. Seems like they got to at least kick the tires on some of these guys, because without Lance McCullers as your number two, no doubter starter, I mean things get kind of iffy.
Or
Yeah,
Julio Taharian, maybe he's working out soon.
I
Oh
was going to
yeah.
say, you guys have been trying to trade Chaz for about 6 months now. And this may be the nail in Chaz's coffin, but they need Chaz because our next guy we're going to talk about in a minute is injured. But first, we want to get Christian's take on McCullers.
Yeah, I mean it's unfortunate. Obviously, the guy wants to play. We never doubted his heart by any stretch. I think there was
One person on
he
Twitter
got
did.
at he got he got at the some folks on Twitter that were getting at him about his commitment to the team and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know. Generally, I think that the fan base knows what he's about. I just don't think that. I don't know. I just don't think that we can ever going to be able to rely on him for a full season anyway. So if it's the start of the season, I'd rather have him off the start of the season, have at the end of the season, rather than the reverse this last season. So I don't know. That's just my opinion on that. I just don't. I'm just not I'm not surprised. Obviously, we want him for 300 innings, but it's probably just not going to happen. So.
Yeah,
And so I think that one of the things that we probably will look at as a team is probably more a deadline deal, right? Is if we go into what we have, we're going to run it the way it is right now. No, we're not going to go out and get anybody at the moment. We do have a few arms kind of hanging around AAA that will be interesting to see if maybe a couple of young guys can come up and make spot starts if needed. But I'm thinking of like in June when Danny Duffy or something is coming off surgery and we need just another arm to eat innings, something like that where we're not investing too much into it and just give McCullers his time that he needs, sort of in the same way that we did Bregman. Hopefully when he comes back, he'll be a little more productive than Bregman was, but Bregman just had a snowball of different things going on. But yeah, I think it's just we got what we have right now, and so I think that I think one of the things is I will stand, as the kids say on Twitter, for Jake Odorizzi a little bit. He didn't get a full training camp last year. He showed up, I don't know, a couple weeks before the start of the season. He was hurt, but I've watched him play. I watched him play with Minnesota. He's got decent stuff. He's just really got to get it locked in. Maybe this is, we're not, and his job even last season wasn't to be a frontline starter. It was be a 2 through 5 or 3 through 5 guy who eats innings. And so we really just need him to get out of the fifth inning. And, then he's doing what we're paying him for. So.
Yeah, I was going to say about McCullers, just part of my evolution as a fan. Somebody about 5 years ago, I think it was 5, said the same thing about McCullers. We can't trust him to make it through the season. I was like, I defended him all over the place. Well, it's only been 1 year, and here we are 5 years later. Now, I'm not saying that was a doctor speaking on the other end of the internet, but he was right in Lance McCullers, and I agree with you 100%. It's not that he doesn't want to play. There's always one, right? There's on Twitter, there's more than one. There's a million. But there's always one person that thinks Lance McCullers doesn't want to pitch. He got paid and doesn't want to pitch. Well, his next contract, he's not going to get paid if he's not healthy, and he'd probably make twice as much if he's making now if he was healthy. And obviously, the guy wants to pitch. So, but there's one in every crowd. Okay, let's shift to a little bit of good news. Jake Myers is ahead of schedule. Christian, what's your take on Jake Myers? And then I think I saw a May-June time frame for Jake Myers, at least.
We saw some video. Yeah, we saw some videos of him at spring training. I don't think he's throwing hard, but he's running and catching and doing some stuff. So it's encouraging to see. I'm not a huge believer in terms of him versus Chaz McCormick. I'd rather have Jake Myers playing, but I think it's just personal opinion. I think statistically they're very close, and it's really hard to just analytically draw separation, but just in my mind, just looking at it in the eye test, I kind of want Jake Myers to be patrolling center field if that's the route we're going to go. And so I don't know, the sooner we get him back, the better. I mean, he looked like he had some pep in his step and moving around and making some plays, and obviously not really throwing, but way ahead of schedule. We got to be excited about that.
Nice to have an Astro ahead of schedule. Brian, your take on Jake Myers?
I mean, the fact that he's out there and working out is a great sign for the Astros, and like Christian was saying, I agree that he is the preferred center fielder, but there are worse things that could happen having four outfielders in the mix. That anybody's day off, that one guy can slip in no problem, and you don't really miss a beat. I think that's a great thing to have, and I think other teams would love to have that luxury and go forth from there. And just to bring up too, I hate to go from positive to negative, but in the same realm, we talk about McCullers, and I think it's his massive use of curveballs that hurts him in the long run for his arm. But the other thing that we have to remember and look at is Yordan Alvarez also has a history of getting injured. So if he goes down, at least if you have McCormick and Myers, at least you have somebody that can be serviceable in that DH role a little bit. And you certainly lose a lot of power, but you have a regular major leaguer stepping in there, and that could be something that we come into contact with on a regular basis too. So you never know what's going to happen with either of those guys. But on the offensive side of the ball, Jordan's also a big question mark.
Yeah, I picture Jordan as a DH who can occasionally play left. That's how I see it. I don't want him trying to play 140 games in left field, even though he's serviceable out there for the most part. Matt Kunkel, your take on Jake Myers ahead of schedule?
That's like I said, not good. That news is really good to hear that he's back on schedule. I mean, I don't know how the front office ranks these outfielders, but I would assume that their power rankings on the players that they have would be Jake Myers 1, probably Chas McCormick 2, Jose Siri 3, with probably Jose Siri maybe jumping ahead of McCormick with his energy and his ability to run the bases. I'm excited about Jake Myers. I still don't know where he came from last year. He was just some random call up that just was hitting like peak Torrey Hunter for a month. I had no idea who he was, but I like him. I'm interested to see once he's back how he adjusts to other teams adjusting to him. Now they have tape on pitches that he likes, pitches that he doesn't like. We saw he tailed off just a bit in September, so let's see how he approaches. But I'm glad that he sounds like he's going to be back by June, and we can see a lot of at bats from him, and hopefully he can find that fire that he had last year.
Yeah, I don't think Chas Myers is going to the Chas Myers. I mixed the two. Maybe they will.
We can call him that.
I don't think Chas McCormick is going. Chas Siri McCormick. There you go. I don't think Chas McCormick is going to the Hall of Fame. My point on Chas McCormick is he plays all three positions and he plays them very well. And that's not only by metrics, that's from the eyeball test too. And nobody's giving you more effort than Chas McCormick. Now, maybe that's because he's trying to stay in the major leagues, but who cares? He's giving you the effort. And that's my big thing. And we talked earlier a little bit, fellas, about the Astros. They are what they are. I think Christian mentioned that a minute ago, that this is who they're going to roll with. They had a couple of nondescript signings, really. Nico Goodrum to a 1-year contract. They designated Jairo Solis for assignment. The guy hadn't pitched in 2018, so I think that's a good choice to designate for assignment. I'm just kind of wondering what he was doing on the 40-man. So who knows? Then they signed Lewis Brinson to a minor league deal. Not much really to talk about there. Just kind of some contingency plans in case things don't work out the way they intend. Now, today in our Slack channel, we talked about the win totals for the AL West. I'm going to write an article on this in the coming days, but Astros were signed 92 wins, the Mariners 86.5, the Angels 84.5, the Rangers with their $500 million infield and more since they signed those guys, 73 wins, and the Athletics, who I think at last they sold somebody's mother or traded her away, 72.5 for the Athletics. So Rangers got a little bump from their 100-loss season, but the Athletics obviously went down. But every one of you, I think, reacted to the Astros and the 92 win over under for the Astros. And right now, I put a poll up on Twitter. We've got 80 votes, and 80% says they'll take the over, 7% take the under, 13% think they nailed it. Now, that's Astro fans. So take that with a grain of salt. Most of those fans are Astro fans, but 80% will take the over. Christian, let's start with you. Your thoughts on 92 wins for the Astros?
I mean, we're essentially, I don't know, we're what 90 some games. 90 was it 95 last season?
Yeah,
95. Mm-hmm.
And we're running it back. I mean, I guess I guess that you could. Is Correa worth 3 wins? I guess wins above replacement. He sure is, but
McCullers.
But I think with Verlander back and the depth that we have at starting pitching throughout the entire season, obviously we just talked about worst case scenario that McCullers wouldn't come back, but that's not really how these work.
Right.
You know, they set the line to try to agitate both sides, right?
Both sides,
So I could see I can't see a situation unless there's something catastrophic where we don't win at least 95 games again. Bregman's going to be back. He's going to be productive. You know, our lineup isn't really changed a whole lot. Even if with Correa in our lineup last season, he was pretty much absent offensively from, I don't know, late June till late August. And so pretty much over half the season, just about half the season, he was on some of the worst hitting streaks hitless streaks of his entire career. And so I just think there's too many things going for the Astros. I know the division is getting trickier, and that definitely could be a factor into that. But I still think 95 games is realistic. I'm taking the over.
Okay. Yeah. I was thinking in a few years it may change because they're going to be playing the Dodgers every year and playing the AL West less, right? It's going to move when they change the schedule. It's going to move from 19 in your division to 14. So that's less Rangers, less Angels, less A's. But not this year. Matt Kunkel, your take on the 92 over/under number set for the Astros?
Well, I think Vegas nailed it. I just want to reiterate, and I don't think it's too obvious, but I mean, a lot of the money that goes into betting on these are people from New York, California. I mean, I guess now that sports books are now available across the country, but a lot of the money is coming from, you know, those big cities, and you know that's where the Dodgers play, the Yankees play, the Red Sox. They all hate the Astros. They wake up every day and saying this is the year they're going to have their downfall, and it's got to be a realistic number. For me, 92, I mean, I'm going to take the over because, look, we had 95 wins without 30 starts from Justin Verlander, without 1 to 2 months with Alex Bregman, who, when he's healthy and right, is amongst, you know, he's a top 20 player in the league. And, you know, we were going up against an athletics team that was really good until mid-September and they fell apart. Now we're going to be playing the Las Vegas Athletics, their AAA affiliate for the year. So I mean, and then obviously we get to play the Rangers. We played pretty poor against the Rangers. I went to a game out of Globe Life and the Astros looked terrible. I don't think they're going to lose. I don't think they're going to get swept by the Rangers twice. So I mean, if we're counting wins, I lean towards the over. Obviously, I lean towards the over still without McCullers. I think that's pretty spot on.
All right. Yeah, as Christian nailed it, right? They're trying to set this number not necessarily where they think the Astros will be, but where both sides will bet it, right? Astro fans, like we're sounding right here, everybody's going 92, that's great. And on the other end, they're going, oh, there's no McCullers, they're not going to have Correa. So it sounds like they did a pretty good job. And of course, this will fluctuate, as Matt said, depending on where the money flows and how much flows. Brian Dunleavy, you got the last word on 92 over and under, though I did just get a response on Twitter that said 102 and 103, 102 or 103.
That would be nice. I think that there's only one way that's going to happen, and I think we do get 100 wins if McCullers is only out for a month, and if Correa resigns. If neither of those happen, then I think we're in the 90s, and if both of those are really bad, if for example, if we don't sign Correa and McCullers is out for half of a season, I think we're in the 80s, and I think the Mariners are above us. I think they get first place, and I'll even throw this other caveat. I know Vegas isn't listening right now, but if Nico Goodrum or Lewis Brinson play a game in the major leagues, then we are under 90 wins. I will say that. I don't think those two, unless they're just filling in as a backup, because on somebody's day off, if they're starting as a regular starter, there's no way we're getting 90 wins, either of those guys.
And Brian, I'll just say Nico Goodrum hit 310 against lefties. That's all I'll say. I'll back
away. He did. He sounds like a great pinch hitter. But my last bit to this too, and I will say 92 is, man, that's such a great. I think we're around 90, 93, 90, 92, because only one time in Dusty Baker's coaching history has he had multiple years where he's gained on his previous year, and done better. So back-to-back seasons doing well. Dusty's done one time, and that last time was with the Washington Nationals that collapsed the first round of the playoffs. So I don't wish that on us. I'd rather have 88 wins and do well in the playoffs than have 99 wins and then collapse like the Nationals did. So I don't see it happen. I'm betting over. I'm guessing if they sign Correa, it'll go up to 95. But if they don't, I'm betting under. If they don't sign Correa.
All right. Yeah, leave it to Brian Dunleavy to bring up a Dusty Baker collapse at the end of a very good podcast. A lot of fun guys talking Astros, talking baseball, talking injuries, and not talking about contracts or finances too much. Appreciate everybody's time. Until next week, Matt Kunkel, Christian Espinosa, Brian Dunleavy, I'm Marty Coleman. We'll talk to you next week on the Juice Box Junkies.